and providing an opportunity for civic engagement. You will forever be a Cougar. Welcome back.
Let's give our wonderful president a loving round of applause. There are questions. I'll have people read their questions. This will be open questions. People can come. Some questions will repeat themselves. I'm honored to be here today. Honored to be back in Chicago State. I had the privilege and the pleasure, the opportunity to teach here for some years, and it was certainly a joy. I look forward to spending some time back in the classroom. And how else can you learn unless you go into a classroom? And so I want to say thank you, Dr. Scott. Thank you for all the great things you've done and the continued success and achievements that you've had. I'd like to thank all the residents of the 1st District and some of those that are not here as well, that are members of the Chicagoland, Illinois community. And I would certainly welcome you to move into the 1st Congressional District. We are still looking for tremendous growth. Say thank you. So where do I begin? I will tell you that maybe let's start with the most pressing issues, and then we can work backwards, and we'll open it up to the Q&A. I can't quite see all the slides that are going on right here. Boom, 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 boom. But let's get going. So on this past Monday, you might have seen in the news that Leader Jeffries, the leader of the Democratic Caucus, came to Chicago and was talking about mapping. What is that about? Specifically, there is a case of Louisiana versus Callis. That has to deal with the Voting Rights Act of 1965, specifically Section 2 and its enforcement. Can you have majority-minority districts? These aren't simply lines on a map. These are voices. Who has a right to have representation where people can be heard and have the diversity within our United States Congress? Currently, there are 62 African Americans in the United States Congress, the most there have ever been at one time. And now the attacks have begun just on the diversity, equity, and inclusion, the rollback on progress that has been made. So what does that look like? We have seen Reconstruction before. There have been some damages done in our country. We've tried to ameliorate it, tried to improve upon it, and diversity, equity, and inclusion have been the guardrails, if you will, that have made inclusivity part of the norm for women, for different ethnicities that have been excluded. And the president started on January 20th having an attack, saying there are too many people that have used this program called diversity. Well, there was a period of exclusion and segregation. We know that history. This has been guardrails. These aren't people that are incompetent and unqualified. These are people that are structurally, institutionally, have been overlooked and denied. And so these were healthy programs. As a consequence, after January 20th, my congressman, a friend of mine, Congressman Cleo Fields, we started a diversity, equity, and inclusion caucus. I know that Harvard has run away from it and other universities have tried to fight for it, but we are co-equal branches of government. Mr. Donald J. Trump cannot take aspirational words out of our mouth. And from that, we have seen this take. You can give that a round of applause. If you're dealing with a bully, it doesn't stop. How do you have women's athletic and women's sports and women's facilities? That's a part of the inclusivity program, that you have to have equal funding for men and women in the athletic arena. Before that, you did not have women's sports. I couldn't help but be in the United States Supreme Court on October 15th when they were listening to the case of the Louisiana versus Callis, and just couldn't believe that since 1789, we've had 6 women on the United States Supreme Court, and currently we have 4. This is the most we've ever had on the United States Supreme Court, and they're telling us we've had too much diversity, too much equity, and too much inclusivity. In the United States House of Representatives, we've had 12,560 representatives since 1789. There have been fewer than 150 African Americans that have had the right to vote on the floor of the United States Congress. And they're saying they've had too much diversity. It is a guardrail. It's helped make America better, and that's the side we're going to be on. And I want you to know this is a worldwide issue. This is not simply an American issue. Quite a few countries have diversity written into their constitution. So when Mr. Trump tells the French government, you cannot do business with the United States if you have diversity. They said, no, you can't take that up. We have in our Constitution that you have to have women in our legislature. When they have India, we're very proud of all the success that India has. They had an outcast system. They in turn created an affirmative action program to make sure that they would get rid of those that have been in the caste system. And so once they have been able to access all of the minds, all of the talent, their country has begun to prosper because the good Lord puts genius all over town. So we have to make sure that the doors of opportunity stay wide open. I don't want to talk about how incompetent this administration is, but we're going to go on further. So Leader Jeffries came to town to ask us to have an open mind so that we could explore all the possibilities to potentially gaining another Democratic seat. And I want to share one thing with you. The 1st Congressional District has had an African American at its leadership since 1928. And by 2028, we will be celebrating 100 years of African American leadership in the 1st Congressional District. And so I shared with other members of the caucus, I want to help, I'm very supportive, I will keep an open mind, but let me tell you, the 1st Congressional District will continue to be a majority-minority district so long as I'm at the helm. And what does it say? It says that it's a voice, that we have a perspective, and that we deserve to be heard. So we do not plan on that being diluted, and it's important that we have women. If they can start by diluting the minority voices, then what says they can't do it on income? What says they can't do it on gender? What is the stop? There is no stopping it. So inclusivity is a forward-thinking program. Now, they went on to Springfield. Many of our elected officials had not seen the maps. I don't know if they've seen them to date, and so we will wait and see. And because the United States Supreme Court, in this Louisiana versus Callis case, they've taken up the issue of whether or not we can have these majority-minority districts. What can happen as a consequence? If you think what happened for Students for Fair Admissions is bad, where they said you cannot consider race as a consideration for the academics, for the inclusion of the universities. As a consequence of that, Donald Trump has told Harvard you cannot have minority students. Then he told you can't have too many international students. Then he's gone on down the road and he's hit University of Chicago. He's trying to hold up money for Northwestern. He's gone on to Penn. He's gone on to Yale. And as a consequence, 6 months later, there are fewer African American and Hispanic students at Harvard and all of these other elite institutions. None more elite than Chicago State University, in my opinion, because there are great minds everywhere. But he started clearing the roles. And isn't it ironic that every member on the United States Supreme Court went to one of those Ivy League schools? Now he says there's too many people that have gone there. So we'll continue to explore. Now, Mr. Trump is the same person that says, I need 11,780 votes. We know that's vote tampering. He told the Secretary of State of Georgia, get me some more votes. The people had already voted. He was trying to do voter suppression, knocking people off the rolls. And the second part is in trying to take some votes. It's the same person that stood behind the insurrectionists that had Capitol Hill officers killed. And we had passed the measure for a plaque to honor those officers on Capitol Hill, and Speaker Johnson refuses to put up a memorial marker to acknowledge the death of those persons from January 6th. We find that sickening and deplorable. So as a consequence, when Mr. Trump says, go get me 5 seats in Texas, the short thumbnail of this, you're supposed to have the census every 10 years. Then you have the reapportionment. And by the way, census says count every person. It doesn't say count every citizen. It says count every person. Why? So you can have federal funds help these institutions and these cities and these states. That's how they determine the floor of funds. And that floor of funds stays in place for 10 years. Then you go through reapportionment. Those 435 members in the United States House of Representatives, they determine which states grew, which states shrunk, who's going to gain a seat, who's going to lose a seat, and that's how it happens. And then you go through redistricting where they make the maps. These maps are supposed to stay in place for 10 years. But since the census and since the election of 2000, they have been rewriting maps every 2 years in the new millennium. So we've already started teetering on some things that are constitutionally challenging, and there's some new laws that we have to create. Keep the lines in place for 10 years. We don't have to go through this process of trying to squeeze people out. I don't like that process, and when they say we got to fight fire with fire, that will only leave a heap of ashes. There is not a good outcome to saying we're going to do to them what they're doing to us. And so in Texas, one of the things that happened, you've had 4 million African Americans and Hispanics move into Texas from 2010 to 2020 and did not gain one new seat. That's what's called gerrymandering, when you start moving seats around to try to permanently lose the voice of people. So then Governor Gavin Newsom said, we're going to try to get those 5 seats back. They've just passed a measure, Proposition 50, so they can do some redistricting. And then a tidal wave of redistricting is now taking place across the country. It went into Kansas. There's a Native American woman down there. They want to take her out. Then it's gone into Missouri. They're going to take people out. They've started redistricting in Indiana, then into Louisiana. It's going into Ohio, now into North Carolina, back into Florida. They're trying to go to New York and into Illinois. So we are in a pretty rough space. I want you to understand that. That's the big picture on redistricting that's happening now that we have to be concerned about. What's going to be the end outcome of that? I don't know. I think it ties in to the president's interest in creating this new ballroom. I don't know that he plans on leaving in 2028. The Constitution is clear that you cannot serve more than 2 terms, consecutively or cumulatively. You got to spell out every word with this guy, because if he sees an air bubble, he's going to try to wiggle his way in there. You cannot do it. And I wish somebody would have told him on the Republican side, that is not his house. It's the people's house. Nobody wants to see that big Costco ballroom convention center. Let me go on through here. The government shutdown. Let's start with the government shutdown. If people have a concern about the government shutdown, how do we get here? Let me see a raise of hands if this is where you want to start. Okay, so here we go. Let's start with the government shutdown. What is all of this about? The President of the United States puts forward a spending bill. And the members of the Congress, we vote on it. And the members of the Congress are supposed to also have the opportunity to level tariffs against people. That is not supposed to be in the domain of the executive branch. His job is the chief executive officer. He's in charge of the United States Armed Services. He's supposed to be in charge of law enforcement. And in practice, the Attorney General of the United States is supposed to be for the people of the United States so we can redress grievances. No, he doesn't see it that way. He thinks the Attorney General works for him. That is why he is doing selective persecution, saying go after Comey, go after Letitia James, go after all these other people. That is very undemocratic to go after and weaponizing our judiciary. And then he's saying the people that came out for the No Kings March, all of you that came out, congratulations. And those of you that missed it, I look forward to seeing you at the next one. We've got to send a message to him that he is not a king and we are not his peons or puppets that are going around here. He wants to say people that came out to these protests are with Antifa. Who is Antifa? So he's trying to, we understand it means anti-fascist. We get all that. But there's no Antifa headquarters. There's no organization. They're just trying to label and slander and besmirch people and say they're trying to do these things. And now if you were to ask me personally, or if I can say it publicly, he is trying to set the stage for chaos on the streets of the United States of America. First, by weaponizing this agency called ICE. And personally, I don't like people that wear too many hoods over their face or a mask above their face. I don't think it's necessary, and I think it's wrong. I got my own theory that many of these people that are serving in ICE are unqualified to be police officers. That's why they're going around with their faces covered up. I like officer friendly. Have a name, a badge, stand up, greet people. But I don't want to see men jumping out of unmarked vans throwing women on the ground. That is sick. And it's also setting a precedent for young people. Children are watching. I try to tell my Republican colleagues all the time, we're not going to be here forever, but our children are watching. Is this really the precedent that we want to set and put in motion? I don't like it. So ICE has now been funded under this one big ugly bill that he passed on July 4th and signed at his horrific military parade, where you can see nobody wanted to be there. And now ICE is the 10th largest military agency in the world. They got funded to the tune of $150 billion to build encampments, to build all these private sector facilities. And if you want to know who's building this big ball, he's going to all the contractors that are going to make the money off these ICE contracts. And what do they need? They need food, they need tents, they need encampments, they need security systems, they need surveillance, they need biometrics. They're like all these people. It's the most graft that you've never seen before in your life. And so all these people, and then he had the military, a private anonymous donor, spend $130 million paying our soldiers. Who wants an individual paying our soldiers? Will they have influence over our soldiers next? We don't need these private companies' money to fund our government. Our government is wealthy enough, and we don't need to have private interests to do public works. Give that an applause. You start slipping down something that you're not going to be happy with. Let's get on through this here. How do we get here on this shutdown? We have a continuing resolution. The president's supposed to propose a bill. We're supposed to vote on it. If not, if there's no agreement, there's something called a continuing resolution, which means we fund the government this year at last year's level until we finally agree on something. There's been no agreement. If you see where these votes are coming down, they're coming down strictly on party lines. 218, 217, 218, 217. When I got into the Congress, there were 3 Democratic congresspersons. There were 7 in North Carolina out of 14. If you look and see where North Carolina votes, the system was working. It's roughly 50-50. So 7 Democrats were in the Congress and 7 Republicans were in the Congress. It is what it is. Then they started redistricting. They took out 3 Democrats. Had those 3 Democrats not been gerrymandered and redistricted out of their district, we would have had Leader Jeffries to be Speaker of the House and not Mike Johnson. So this started with the 118th Congress. Then the president starts in Georgia, give me 11,780 votes. Had he done that and gotten his votes, he would have had the majority in the United States Senate, and we would have had no brakes on the system. So thank goodness that the people and the Republicans in office, the Republican Secretary of State says, no, I'm not going to steal votes. We don't do that. And then you turn around, and what has he done now? They passed these bills. We've had no amendments added to them, and you're supposed to get 60 votes in the Senate in order to pass it. There's been no conversation. So now there are 51 Democrats and 49 Republicans. 3 Democrats have gone on to side with him on trying to stop the Republican shutdown of the government, but he needs 60 votes. So they are holding the line. That's how we've come to the shutdown. Why is that? Because come November 1st, without the subsidies that have gone into the Affordable Care Act, insurance rates are going to skyrocket. Some of you have already started seeing that. Without the budget passed, you're going to also see the funding for the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program is going to hit its break. That is where we are today. That is how we got here, because the Republican side, frankly, is not talking with the Democrats. I know it may seem simple, it may seem childish, but that's the truth. Since the end of July, we have spent less than 14 days working in session in the United States Capitol. Now we're going on almost 120 days. There is also what is called a discharge petition going on, meaning you can override the votes across bipartisan lines to have the Epstein files released. and Speaker Johnson refuses to call us back into session and to also swear in the Congresswoman Guerrero out of New Mexico because we would have enough votes to release the Epstein files. Who can be against releasing the documents on a pedophile? Enough of that. But it's a problem that we have to deal with. But it was a sex trafficking ring amongst the rich and the powerful. They need to be brought to heel. I'm glad to see that, what's this guy named Prince Andrew?
Yeah.
That he lost all of his titles today, and I hope they get the rest of them. We need to clean up that scourge, and it's a bigger issue than what we talk about around the United States
Yes.
of America.
Yes.
That's how we got here. Federal law enforcement and military presence in Chicago. When the president called the nation's military leaders into Quantico in Virginia at the Marine headquarters, and he told all of these esteemed leaders from around the world that we need to look at the enemy within. And we also need to look at using some of our cities as training grounds. That was one of the darkest days that you're going to look at in American history. He called the American citizens the enemies. It's against the law. It was passed in 1787 called the Posse Comitatus Act, where you cannot put United States military on American soil against its own citizens unless you have the consent of a governor or someone that asks for the help. He's overriding the Constitution and breaking our laws. These persons with these long barrel guns, they are not here to do crime detection. These people are trained to kill. He's trying to create divisiveness and turn American citizens on one another. This is why we have to be more vigilant than ever to make sure we turn this back. If you go over to 75th and South Shore, where that building is, the building that the Tomahawk helicopters came in and the United States military, and they started kicking in the doors on those buildings and bringing women out in zip ties, children out in zip ties, throwing tear gas in the American streets. There were 37 people in a condemned building. The building is in really, really bad shape. They actually not only arrested some migrants that were here lawfully, they ended up with one arrest. And that person might have had a traffic violation. And they brought the United States military into our city. But Chicago is a metaphor. Chicago is a city that has immigrant communities. Chicago is a city that, let's get this history from some Capone and this and that. Some people outside of here really have some really bad impressions of us. I don't know. So they're trying to say Chicago the metaphor. I'm going in there to save Chicago. We did not have the problem. What you could have done is continue to fund the policing programs that we have that are working so we can take our problem into our own hands. The last point I want to make on that is these ICE officers with no name, no badges, after they arrested the people, I couldn't tell the citizens where their mother was. It's not like you can go to the police department and say, the person that was abducted last night, where are they now? There's no trace. Well, where are the children? One young lady found out her mother was in El Paso by the next morning. Another young lady said, now I have to care for my sister. I'm dropping out of school. He is tearing the country apart. So you bring the military into the grounds, then with these skyrocketing food prices, and because he's been firing people at the Bureau of Economic Statistics, they aren't reporting the truth of how bad inflation is. Who knows inflation is high? If you doubt it, go to the grocery store when you leave here. And you know the inflation's high, but he's now dealing, he's taking the experts out of the Bureau of Statistics that report the labor and the food costs. Then he's going to cut the SNAP benefits, withhold the contingency funds. There are funds already appropriated in the event that the government isn't funding. He's refusing to let the Secretary of the Treasury spend the money. So now he wants to see people, I know it's hard to believe, yes, but on November 1, 6 million children are going to be hungry, 42 million people rely upon this program. He wants to create this sort of anarchy in the streets. So now he can justify the military that he has already sent. That's his game plan. Will he try to do 2028? In some way, I could even see him saying that it's martial law because there's people that have done some destructive things. So let's not fall for the bait. That's what he's trying to do. I would tell you, as friends and loving people, help all the neighbors that you can. People are going to be hungry. I just left from 71st and St. Lawrence. There's a fantastic program over there. It's called Girls in the Hood. These young ladies are helping other young ladies. We were feeding some people over there. On Monday, we're going to have some other designated spots where we're going to be feeding people. If you have some ideas in your mind of where we should go, we're going to have a big grill, making chicken and hamburgers and other things, doing whatever little bit we can to try to absolve some of this pain. Let us know, and if we can do something with you and your community group, we'd be glad to do our part. We've got some great people, and every time we do it, people bring food. The generosity of people is absolutely heartwarming. People don't actually want to see people suffering, so let us know by the end of the program. The expired farm bill. I serve on the Foreign Affairs Committee and the Farming and the Agriculture Committee. To me, they're the same. It's two sides of the same coin. If you want to know how a country politics, look at its food. If you want to know its food, you can see its politics. It's all the same coin. 60% of our produce comes from out of the United States. Our biggest export from the state of Illinois is in soybean. When I first got on the Ag Committee, one of the persons from Tennessee asked me, he says, Mr. Jackson, you're from Chicago, why are you on the Ag Committee? And I looked at him and said, everybody eats. That's really why I'm on the Ag Committee. You know, we have a real concern about the Ag Committee. Also, the Supplemental Nutritional Assistance Program, the feeding of women and children, is underneath the Ag Committee. And we knew this was going to be a contentious issue. Never has it been this issue before. Feeding people is something that farmers like to do. This has been weaponized for political purposes. And when he says he wants to make blue states feel the pain, this is a game to them for some of the richest, sickest people you've ever seen on earth. They seem normal when you talk to them one-on-one, but once they get together in a group, they vote on the things that are the most cruel that you can ever imagine. And to think that, oops, let me see what I gotta do. Let's see what we got here. This is the federal government shutdown. Why are we standing on this health care issue? To think that 16 to 22 million people are going to lose their health coverage. I'm already getting the calls in now. People that cannot afford their insulin, they're choosing between insulin and food. That's a false choice. We don't have to make that. When they passed that bill, one big, beautiful bill is what they called it, they also passed out $5 trillion in tax breaks. How do we get to the shutdown? We're saying you got to give back some of those tax breaks. The beauty about taxes is you only pay taxes in America if you make money. If you don't make money, you pay no taxes. But if you've been fortunate enough to make $1 billion, you ought to pay some taxes. The fiscal year ends September 30th. Our calendar for our practical purposes starts on January 1st and ends December 31st. The government can set its fiscal calendar to September 30th. So October 1 is the beginning of the fiscal year for the federal government. That's how you get to 30 days in without this spending that we are now reaching this cliff. When Congress cannot agree on a funding, this goes into shutdown. I can't see what this is right now. We'll keep going so I can see something. The current budget debate is stalled over critical issues. Right now, they're saying health care, and I've impressed upon our leadership, we can stand for more than one issue at a time. We've also got to do health care. We've also got to do the voting rights amendment. We cannot have our voting rights diluted. We can also deal with the student debt. We can also deal with housing. We have to look at this all at the same time. I really would like to think that we're going forward and we could talk about AI in the workplace. Our workplace will be transformed in the next 5 years, and that's where our leadership should be thinking about. There's going to be a certain level of white-collar jobs that will be affected. We can redefine work into the future. We can actually have more leisure time. People can have better standard of living. There's a way we can modify this, but when people lose their work and there's no work coming behind them, we're going to have a bigger problem in society. So we're looking at an era now where when Amazon lays off 14,000 people and they're a tech giant and they have 1.4 million people, like what's next? When Salesforce stocks goes up because they laid off 5,000 white collar jobs, what work are we preparing young people and us older people for into the future? In case you haven't been to a hospital recently, the robots can deliver medicine, and the toll booth guy is gone, and the sweepers are gone. And if you go to CVS, you got to bag your own thing and scan your own thing, which I find annoying. I'm a little too old for that. I do like to see some human beings. So we're trying to stop the devastating cuts into the health care at the core of the agreement. And I can furnish any of you with these slides. We can talk if you have additional questions. If we don't get to them this evening, please write them down, text us, and we can have those posted on our website as well. I am visually impaired right now, but it looks like Schumer, are undocumented immigrants eligible for federal funded health care? The answer is no. So that is, I don't want to call Speaker Johnson a liar, but I'll say he's a fabricator of the truth. Okay? But no, they cannot. It's against the law. It's passed into law. What he's trying to do is first say it's woke is the problem. Then it's DEI, that's the problem. Then it's a migrant, which is the problem. Then it's a constant blame. And those that have read the Bible, the original sin is blaming. She made me do it. He made me do it. It's blaming. He wants to turn people on each other. Let's not fall for the bait that people have come up here under some dire circumstances. Some of the people that came up here from Venezuela, they've had the equivalent of 4 Great Depressions in the last 20 years, induced by the United States government. Venezuela has more oil proven reserves than Saudi Arabia and any country on earth. This is about oil. Trust me when I tell you, there are attacks on blowing up those fishing and gunboats. There is no security threat. You've got the USS Gerald Ford and the greatest military might. You can stop the boat, pick it up. Let's see the evidence. You know, arrest people. Why are you blowing them up like this is a war game? On a side note, I was the first member of Congress to ask for Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth to resign. He is totally incompetent and needs to go. He says the stupidest thing he's ever heard of is diversity is our strength. These are his quotes. Democrats' priority. Right now it's health care. What you've heard, and let me digress on the Students for Fair Admissions. This was the case on whether or not you can have racial consideration in opening up your applicant pools for universities. The Supreme Court came back in June of 2023 and said no. But the Democrats did not appeal it. They were wrong for that. What the Democrats did not appeal was what the military academies, the West Points and the Citadel, they asked for diversity to be included in their recruitment. So diversity is legal in the military, but they say it's illegal in the private sector and the public universities. They never appealed it.
Why?
So what's good? Well, that's a good question. Just it's a leadership issue on that. But how can you say this is good for the war room, but not good for the classroom or the boardroom? It makes no sense. So you can put people's bodies on the front line of war, but then you take them out of the front line for opportunity. So I look forward to that. We gotta figure that out and how we get that case brought forward. And don't forget that Colin Powell was an affirmative action candidate. I make sure that all of my Republican colleagues understand that. He made the military better. You need to show people, different groups in leadership so you can continue to attract them, and it brings out the best. We're a composite nation. We can make room for other people, so that's a problem. What is this here? These subsidies. When they take these subsidies out, this is what's creating these insurance premiums. Some markets have 3 carriers, providers for insurance. Some have 5. Some only have 2. When you get down to 1 carrier, then the rates are going to spike up or just have 2 because there's no more competition. So insurers are fleeing the healthcare market now because they do not have any incentive to try to insure other people. Are there some things broken in the healthcare market? Absolutely. Should we fix it positively? $1 in $6 in the United States of America is spent in health care. Small fact, if the average American today weighed what the average American weighed 50 years ago, we would save $1 trillion in healthcare costs. We have an issue with food supply. It's kind of like we're overfed and undernourished. You know, this is not healthy. Type 1 and type 2 diabetes is now in every elementary school across the country. We have to fix the food source. The good news is we have enough food that we can fix it. We just have to take out some of the bad stuff that's in it. Democratic Party, healthcare, soaring premiums, ACA, there's a lot of good stuff there. What is this one here? Premium increases. I can share all that with you. But I can go through this. I'd love to hear questions from you. You all have come out. I'm grateful that you're here. Let's have a town hall. We can do this the way that we do in the Midwest. We've got the most sense. So I am yours, and let's have at it. So thank you. Let's give a round of applause. I'd like to thank my sister Santita here, and my senior advisor, James Floyd. I'd like to thank Ian, Omar, wave your hand, Houston. I'd like to thank our district director, Sharon. I'd like to thank our scheduler, Andrea. In case you're out at the casino, you all recognize any of these people? Okay. Yes. Okay, is there a question? Congratulations and continued success, okay? Thank you. Yes, sir. Can't see, it's too small. Is there a question, ma'am? I can't hear you. Can you come forward some? Is there a question? No, that's good.
Questions that you guys submitted, I'll just keep the mic and I'll hear your text. Hi, yeah. My question is, where are the resources for the African American community that was taken away when the immigrants came in? I'm with helping everyone, but charity begins at home and then spreads abroad. So where was the resources for our community when our children was put out of their parks and told to go across gang territory so that the immigrants can be taken care of, and then we'll give you the scraps that's left over?
Okay, thank you so much. So there were no federal funds that came to the city of Chicago that were diverted to the immigrant community. And this football game they're playing with people that are in desperate conditions, I think we should try to address that. First thing I did when I got into Congress is I wrote a letter to the Department of Justice, then it was Merrick Garland, and to the Department of Health and Human Services. And I asked for an investigation into Governor Greg Abbott. Governor Greg Abbott, under a program called Lone Star State, started putting women and children on buses from Texas and sending them here. He created a problem that we did not have. And if you saw under the conditions, people that were sleeping outside, sleeping in there, going into the winter, that was absolutely cruel. Some things the state did, that was the state funding, and we should deal with that with the governor. And but every effort to make a level of compassion for some people that have been transported around. What I wanted the Biden administration to do then was to investigate specifically Governor Greg Abbott on child trafficking. You cannot put a child on a bus and send them across state lines unaccompanied without an adult. That is the portal for sexual abuse and other things, and they did not take that case up. I got a letter 2 months afterwards, and I'd written off. But we need to make sure that they weren't put into harm's way. Those children were put into harm's way, and so I would side on compassion, but I don't think it's fair that they were taking resources from our community that we never had access to. So I understand the frustration.
And let me respond to that, because the same thing that Governor Abbott did, Governor Pritzker is doing here in the state of Illinois with the Department of DCFS. That's removing children from black mothers because they're homeless or because they're having some disparities. They are being removed from their parents and put in a system where these black women are not able to see their children. So let's talk about what Pritzker is doing inside of the state of Illinois.
Thank you so much. Okay, appreciate it. Continued success in your run.
Thank you. And I am running for governor, Patricia Tillman.
Please sign her petition. Yes.
Hello, thank you. I'm Betsy Rubin. I'm a proud constituent of yours. My question to you is two parts related. Have you heard any hint from your Republican colleagues that they recognize how dangerous Donald Trump is, how demented he is, cognitive decline, how erratic his behavior is, and how threatening his behavior is? So have you heard any hint from them about it? And either way, yes or no, what are you and Democratic colleagues doing to try to protect our whole nation against fascism and also perhaps nuclear war somewhere? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, as a matter of fact, in this business, you can, people that you think you may not have something in common with, you have a lot in common with. I was on the phone the other day with Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, and she has signed on to the discharge petition to release the Epstein files. She doesn't want to see these continuous wars. She thinks the United States is wrong, bombing these boats out there in Venezuela. So that's one. There's another set of people that are in the Freedom Caucus. I think what you're seeing in the paralysis of the Republican colleagues is that after January 6th, I was in the United States Capitol on January 20th when President Trump was sworn in. And on that day, I remember coming up to the Capitol. It felt more like a takeover than a transition. There were 32 miles of gates and cages all around Washington, D.C. It was a very bitter, cold day. And we were in the rotunda and saw him getting sworn in. And you saw all the wealthiest people in the nation on that stage, and Zuckerberg and Bezos and Musk and all these persons that had complete access to all the media, not the cabinet secretaries, not the future nominees. It was just wealth and power that was stuck up there. Then he went from the rotunda into the Capitol Visitor Center and started signing the executive orders. And one of those executive orders was to release the people from January 6th, criminals, people that had been convicted by law, people that had done gang violence and insurrection and had killed officers, and let them out of jail that night. By the next day when we were voting at noontime, you could look up into in the chamber, there's a section where members have guests and family. Members of the Proud Boy and Oath Keepers were sitting up there. The same people that couldn't get in there 4 years ago were now sitting up there looking at where we were voting. He's essentially created a militia and said, if you create a crime in my name, I will absolve you, I will release you. That sent a chill over many members that otherwise would have been Freedom Caucus, all these people that said, we're against the budget, we can't do this, we're the Harlem, and all of them caved. So there's an enormous amount of threats. I've got 2 people in jail today for credible death threats against me. It's happening to members everywhere. And it's because of his rhetoric and the actions that he has condoned. And now look at the violence he's doing with the Venezuelan people. He's normalizing violence, and he's trying to normalize hate. Hope I've answered your question on that. What was the last part?
The last part is, what are you and Democratic colleagues doing to protect the nation against his increasing fascism and threatening war?
Well, thank you. So right now, our best defense has been the federal court system. There are courts where he has 270 lawsuits and mounting against him. He's trying to go to the Supreme Court every week to get a case. Second thing is the Senate has to hold the line. So they've not let this budget pass. That's why we've had to shut it down. They should have shut it down in the spring, but thank God Schumer finally came around. Schumer left the script and voted against us on his own. That's just how powerful a United States Senator is. And then I just asked the leader, Jeffries, let's go on a bus tour through Iowa, Illinois, Indiana. We've got to get out the city and go into the rural areas, talk to the farmers whose soybeans are backed up, talk to the farmers whose corn is backed up, talk to the farmers in Western Illinois whose hogs cannot be sold. When he did this April 2nd day, and he called this a day of liberation, I said, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster. He says, I like tariffs, and we're going to put tariffs all over the world. And he said, I won't repeat him totally, he says, people from around the world are going to come here kissing me all over. Do you remember that? Well, nobody has wanted to kiss him on his cheeks or in the other part. So now when he says he has a trade agreement, it's the silliest thing you've never seen before. When he talks to the British government and says we have a trade agreement, and then they conclude after he takes a picture in his gold room and says, and you try to read in between the script, it says, we have agreed in concept to the principle of a mutual understanding that by which we will have a frame under which we will have economic and cooperation. It was nothing. So he's not doing trade deals and agreements, and he's just tariff on, tariff off. And now how do you get the tariffs off? You go to Mar-a-Lago and see him. That's too much power. There's no transparency. He didn't like a video the other day that came out of Ontario, so he says, I'm going to raise more tariffs against you. And then when he did the same thing to China, they played him and they got the upper hand. They didn't argue with him when he said tariffs. In 2019, when he did the same thing, China started investing more in Brazil and more in Argentina into soybean. They need the soybeans to feed to their pigs and other things. And so this time when he did the same thing, without a word said, without a press conference, they just didn't buy. Tomorrow I'm going to Polo, Illinois. I'm going to go on a combine, and they've got a lot of soybeans that we planted in April, and the farmers, unfortunately, voted against their own interest. They believed him. They thought it was some economic prosperity. I don't wish bad on anybody, and they are suffering. There is farm foreclosures like you haven't seen. J.D. Vance has a company that's buying busted and distressed failing farms now. I think it's a way of life that we ought to preserve. The median age of a farmer is now 58. I want to get more of our young students to go out and see some of this farmland. Some people, that's the break they need to see some beautiful things. One other point on this here, let me tell you about the first district. In the very southern part of the district, and we got to figure out how we organize to get people to see this. I see some of my people from the southern part of the district, is there are eagles on the Kankakee River, which is majestic. You really got to see it. And also there's a place called, it's owned by Open Lands, but it's in, where is that place? It's the, they've closed it. I'm really upset about it. But anyway, we have, it's between Joliet and Wilmington, Illinois. We have bison, the largest animal in North America. What's that? It's Midwin, right? Midday Wind. Okay, it's fabulous. So it was a park. It used to be an ammunition plant that had 20,000 acres. They converted it back to a natural prairie. It's like 30 miles of park that you can do your bike on, and they've got bison, 74 bison, the largest animal in North America. So it's definitely worth seeing. So look that one up. That was a surprise. So I hope I answered your question on that. And I think we got to take this to the streets. I've asked Leader Jeffries in conclusion, let's do a bus tour. Let's go down to Louisiana so we can put this right back in Speaker Johnson's face, and let's go take a trip to Argentina so you can see while our people are in food lines, he gave them $40 billion, and they're down there having a good time and selling us back our beef.
That's right.
Yes.
Hey, how you doing?
Wonderful yourself.
So, my question is, you spoke about feeding the people just a little while ago. So my question would be, what is the plan to counter the chaos? And as far as unity, what would you spread the message to the people of to get us to come out and support feeding the people with us knowing that this is real? How do we inspire everyone in here who has a great understanding of what they assume should happen when it's really real outside? are we actually going to unify and feed one another, go in our pockets and see people out here homeless and starving and ready to kick off a riot? Are we really going to go in our pocket and feed people? Or are we going to talk about how people need to be fed? Because we can unify right at this moment and go out and feed 100 people right now. So that's my question to you. Are we going to put a plan together that will inspire people to come outside? Because it's a people that's not here tonight who have no clue about what the plan is. How do we reach people to let people know, calm down, it's people here to help you immediately? How do we do that?
Well, thank you so much. It's a great thing. I just left 71st in St. Louis before I came here. You're going to see things posted on our website of other places. Hopefully I can get into a rhythm every other day. Hopefully this doesn't go on much longer and people can have the dignity of going to get their own food and groceries. And I'm going to do my part. I would tell you to go, one resource is go to the United Way website. They've got a great food distribution. There's some good church pantries out here. Sankofa does a great job with Reverend Otis Moss and Trinity over here on 95th. And I think the issue with poverty now is poverty is dressed up. Poverty doesn't look like poverty anymore. People have so many clothes, there's an abundance of clothes, so people drop it off. And you don't know the person as a federal government worker that needs food. There are teachers that are passing out food to children right now, and the teacher needs food. And so a lot of people are at the end of their wits. And I would tell you, please reach out to a neighbor, somebody that you think is doing okay. They probably have too much pride to ask, and that's something I've done consistently. I don't like to ask people, are you hungry? I say, I've got something, I need you to help distribute this for me, okay? Because a lot of people say, don't give me any charity. So I wish I could tell you something more, and that's the reason I stayed on the Ag Committee. You can go on committees where you can raise more money and do other things. The highest and best use of my time is fighting for women and children on the nation's Ag Committee. So we're going to go back to 71st and St. Lawrence this coming week, and then we're going to go over to Auburn, Gresham. There are a few areas that I know are extremely hard hit, and I'll be partnering with some other groups.
Okay, so the message would be inform people from 71st. If the crowd gathers,
yep,
there will be other locations that you can surely go to get at least something to eat, so people will be calm as we tell each one teach one. The calming process can start immediately before people become chaotic.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I would ask everybody, just try. And this isn't a government program. I've deferred my compensation. I'm not taking my pay. I don't want to get paid while the rest of the workers don't get paid. I think that's shameful. And thank God I can, but if you can't, I understand that you have to. You know, we have to have 2 residents in your district and you keep something in D.C., but because we're not in D.C., we don't get reimbursement. So there are people that are paying for 2 places. You only live in one, you work in the other. And can you imagine having to pay for your place to work and you can't get reimbursed? So this is very hurtful to some elected officials as well. Yes?
Hi, I'm reading this on behalf of Deidre.
Yes. Hey.
She said, I appreciate the comment. Fighting fire with fire only leaves ashes. But they're playing chess while we're playing checkers. How do we compete?
Excellent. One way we have to do that is have massive voter registration. Okay? I do believe the system can work. And so if you're an alumni, fraternity, sorority, neighbor, your children, families that vote together can stay together. You've got to get registered to vote. Mrs. Harris had 77 million votes roughly. President Trump had 78.5 million. He won by 1.5 million votes. He won by 800,000 votes within 7 states. 78.5 million. 90 million people did not vote. So none of the above won. And so when we look around, these were our neighbors and family members and friends that did not vote. So I've not given up on voting.
Thank you. Mr. Jackson, America and Illinois are hungry for electricity.
Yes.
Demand is high, supply is tight. Our electric bills are going way up. And renewable energy, wind and solar, are the cheapest and fastest forms of electricity we can get onto the grid. Can we count on you to work with Republicans to try to get some clean energy permitting reform bills passed so we can get more clean energy onto the grid and get our bills?
Yes. So one of the things that's happening with this whole AI, when you go to ChatGPT and you're able to instantaneously pull all this data, is that requires a lot of energy. And so our energy grid is outdated, and that's why the bills are soaring, because there's so much demand and so little supply on it. Not to say that some of the electricity companies don't gouge us, but there's a huge demand. And when President Trump started taking all the credits out of the clean energy bill, there are a lot of foreign investors and U.S. manufacturers that can't spend their money that they had already allocated for investment because he took the credits away. What just happened in Jamaica and happening in other places, global climate change is real. These swings are going to continue to happen. Yes, we need to modernize our electrical grid. I'm also the bipartisan co-chair of the National Prayer Breakfast. I work with Republicans all the time, and the same conversation I'm having in here, I have with them on the same floor. When they started putting up Charlie Kirk pictures, I started making a bigger picture of Martin Luther King. And they know where I stand, and I know where they stand. And so I make it very clear that they thought Martin Luther King was unworthy, and I think he's most worthy. So I think we can be respectful. I don't get into the name calling. Although I may disagree vehemently with President Trump, I still call him President Trump out of respect for the office. What he did with that big ballroom, see me afterwards. I would say, I hope the next person that gets in there on their first day is they take a wrecking ball and take it out, or turn it into an indoor golf range. It's 90,000 square feet. It's the size of a Costco, isn't it? Yes. Does what grant? Not familiar.
HILL burden grant.
I'm not familiar with what's that.
That was a grant that provided health care for anyone who could not afford health care.
Let me find out for you. Can you write that down? Let me answer that.
Repeat the question. We can't hear the question because she's not on the mic.
She was asking, was there still a grant called the Hill-Burton Grant? The man has come in there and they've taken out so many things. We started trying to go to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Members of Congress were locked out of going into federal agencies. If you look at what they're doing now in this government furlough and shutdown, Secret Service gets paid, ICE gets paid, and they're still getting their bonuses. All these other agencies get paid, except for the Capitol Police, the police that have to guard members of the Congress.
Wow.
So he's picking and choosing and trying to create this problem. So the security guards that protected the members of the Capitol that ended up getting killed are not getting paid and are showing up to work and having to get a loan from the nation's credit bureau, from the Federal Credit Union to pay their bills. Yes? Just have to hold it closer.
Oh, all right. I know this question is a bit divergent, Congressman, but a few years ago, Bill Gates was buying up hundreds of thousands of acres of land, and now our farmers can't grow their crops, and now even in a red state, they can't. The cattlemen are having problems. So my question is, why did Bill Gates buy up all that land, that farmland?
I couldn't speculate, but farming is going to be a bigger issue, so it's going to be a huge investment opportunity. When I was born in 1966, there were 3.5 billion people on Earth. Today, there are 8 billion people and growing, and people are heavier and eating more. There's going to be, and our production has not kept up, so there's a lot of money that's going to be made in agriculture. And we can create more sustainable food sources. We can create more sustainable energy. How do we make a planet that's more sustainable? And I would like to see the tax code change where it leans back towards family farmers and not big agribusiness. That if your family chooses to farm, you ought to get more incentives and not just have someone to getting paid that doesn't farm. And if that's a form of lifestyle that you want, you should be incentivized to keep that pastoral lifestyle. I'd be a huge proponent of that. The average median age is 58 for farmers. Many farmers are out here working the land with their families because it's a calling that they have. And I think we should do that. We should also return back on the programs they cut. There was a program in the Farm Bill where you could buy locally. Schools and other things had to buy from your local produce markets. That should be returned as well. So we got to clean up a lot of stuff. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And to that point, I think right now is a great learning curve. I mean, it's a great lesson for us to have some food sovereignty in the state of Illinois. We have enough land, we have enough farmers to feed and reduce the cost of food in the state of Illinois. And I would love to see a campaign of Nourish Illinois.
Pardon me, if I could just say one thing. Before members leave, and I know some people have to leave, if you have some ideas of other places that we should have town halls, please leave us a note so we can partner with you and other places to have town halls. Next week is good. We can do plenty more, so this doesn't have to be the only time. I'm sorry.
I would love to see and possibly work on a Nourish Illinois campaign where more farmers is more encouraged to grow more food in the state of Illinois. We import, way too much food, and we have way too much land and way too much access in a lot of farmers in order for our food costs to be really, really low. And in saying that we should not, we shouldn't be hungry. There shouldn't be any, we are in a great position for Illinois to be food sovereign, to be, completely food sovereign in so many ways, except for, maybe a few things that we cannot grow. But we have a great capacity, and I think that needs to be encouraged, and a huge campaign for these major retailers to have a certain incentive, the same way that they have to procure, from a state perspective, they should have a duty to procure from small farmers.
I love it. I think that should be a national agenda. Of course, we can coordinate that with other states that have the same issues. One of the things you found out during COVID is there weren't enough slaughterhouses, so when the meat prices were too high, we got to put more incentives, almost like the accelerated, the accelerated tax code, where we can put more tax incentives to smaller businesses, smaller farmers. We should not have to say that there was a food contamination at one pork producer and therefore prices are going up all over the country. That's ridiculous. If you try to slaughter a hog in Indiana, you've got to have a USDA inspector to bring it across the border. But who is the USDA inspector going to go to? To the bigger agribusiness, not to the smaller family farmers. So they put disincentives for us to move food from smaller family farmers across state lines. We need to modernize that. Yes?
Good evening, Congressman Jackson. I'm curious to know about the money. Since Doge did what they did, and all this extension of different contracts, and accounting of this, and shakedown of universities, and the law firms, where is the money? Who's keeping track of all of this money that's just floating around out there? Because y'all president wants to get paid $230 million for all the hardship he's endured from being sued. So who's accounting for everything? Who's doing the accounting? So that when we win back the House in next year, 2026, they can be prosecuted for being criminals. This is a straight criminal enterprise occurring right now. So who's doing the accounting and maintaining everything?
Well, unfortunately, the Senate should have never have confirmed Kash Patel over the FBI. Never should have confirmed Bondi over the Attorney General's office. They gave this man that created insurrection all the keys to the government. And you're right, And Doge was one of the biggest epic frauds, and I have to agree with Elon Musk on that. What Mr. Musk was saying, he's going to cut out waste, fraud, and abuse. He first came in there and said he's going to do $2 trillion. Then he said it's going to be $1 trillion. Then before it was over, it was $150 billion. And then they kicked him out. And now you look up, it's $5 trillion debt. It's a bigger deficit. And the only thing that happened is more African-American females have been fired. I mean, this was an attack. Huh? They have fired all of the OIG. And right now, as we're speaking, if you have a Veterans Affairs issue or State Department passport issues, when we go into our portals, we can't submit any inquiries to even get those basic functions of the government to service you. And they're also politicizing the websites. A shutdown's a shutdown. You go to the website now, he says Democrats have shut down the United States government. So he's putting targets on people's backs, you know, where people get desperate and say, it's you that's done this to me. So the man is very spiteful and hateful. Yes? I'm sorry? Who?
Where is the accountability? Because he's just a figurehead. He's an avatar in my mind.
Yep.
He's the one behind him that in his ear, because he's demented. So how is this going to be?
How are the people doing it? Speaker Johnson has those keys. He has frightened his own party. Where it used to be a moderate Republican and people that you could talk to, why are they voting 100% with him? I mean, that's the major issue. So the reason I mentioned Mrs. Green is that she's broken free from that, and others are beginning to break free. So even the good Lord can hit a straight lick with a crooked stick. Like at least she's going in the right direction, and others need to follow that. I mean, Mary Miller, right here in the state of Illinois, she's going to lose 50,000 people on the Medicaid. Why are they doing this? Why won't they stop this man from hurting themselves? And the farmers, I mean, I got a heart for them because God knows it's hard work, but they voted for him and they believe we can all make a mistake, but they made a huge mistake. And now they got record bankruptcies. And that's not good for any of us. I'm sorry.
I don't know if you're going to run again, but if you are, Democrats, they like to...
You said, am I going to run again?
I don't know if you are.
Yes, I am. I'm filing tomorrow morning. Yes.
My question is, if that's the case, and you are going to do that, Democrats like to use black people for votes. That's the most time that I hear us being named and talked to and talked at, right? That's the most time. We don't get named when it's policy time. We don't have things allocated when it's policy time. So if you are going to look for this room, being majority black people, voting for you, you've been in this office, in this seat for I don't know how long. What have you
3
done
years.
in that time, in that 3 years time, sitting in your seat? What have you done? What have you introduced personally for your constituents that look like you in this room? What will you do? And do not mention the immigrants, and do not mention Trump. Those are 2 talking points to get emotional arousal. What is your plan to actually lay out that's tangible for me when I'm looking to vote for you? I can look back and say, okay, this related to me and my household. This related to me and the people I know primarily voted for him. What is that? Give me something like that that's tangible. And then your plan for the future to further make me feel as a black woman who gets leaned on for my vote by your party every single time it's an election, but never named in any policy. I want something. What do I have to look forward to should you receive my vote? You have to earn it now. We can't keep doing this legacy voting because that's what we know. We need tangible. We're past the time of cute words, emotional arousal. We're in the time of looking for facts, proving history, and going forward to have actual plans. And all it takes for him to say Trump bad, you don't vote for him, that is problematic. You can't put anything here in this party.
Let's move football right here.
Okay, good. I want it from him to then go to turning around. So thank you. I've asked my question, and I will sit down. Thank you. Thank you. That's my question. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank Thank you. I received that question. On the Ag Committee. Thank you. On the Ag Committee, one of my amendments, and they accepted no amendments from any Democrat when they passed the one big bill. Specifically, there's able-bodied women without, able-bodied adults without dependents. I said keep that bill as is. That means children that are 14 up to adults that are 54 cannot be removed from the SNAP program. They've since passed the law that they're going to take the recipients now have to work up to the age of 65. So I think that it's honorable work if you take care of your parents, and that is indeed work when you have to deal with their financials, when you have to deal with their health care, you have to deal with their housing. They're saying that's not work, you have to leave. So there'll be many unattended seniors that will be left at home. That's one. Also, when we did the diversity, equity, and inclusion caucus, that is to restore all of the amendments that he had put in there to discourage all corporations from having this voluntary program. How can you outlaw something that's not a law? That was simply a scapegoat to say something that was racialized. I think it made the universities better, and I don't think they should be able to tell private institutions who you can hire, how you can hire, and then make sure that you don't. The third thing that we had done was also on the asking for the resignation of Mr. Pete Hegseth. Mr. Pete Hegseth is sowing divisiveness within the ranks of the United States military. Many African-American soldiers are now resigning in large numbers. From the Southcom Pacific in our own region, the highest ranking officer, he just resigned because he did not want to have to go kill people that were in fishing boats that was breaking international law. I can give you a rundown of 100 things I've done since I've been there, and I can be very specific, ma'am.
Hello,
and I hope to earn your vote one day.
I'm retired sergeant from Cook County Sheriff's Department. Since you are my representative in federal government, and in 2004, the federal government passed a law that said that retired law enforcement officers can carry concealed weapons nationwide. I qualify for this, so my colleagues qualify for this, but yet, Sheriff Dirk, Senator Bill Cunningham, State Senator Bill Cunningham, the governor of this state, they obstruct us from exercising that right. We have a federal right, we have a state right. The governor put that into effect on the 1st of January of 2023, but he's unwilling to enforce it with a training board that is under his authority. Okay? Now, I've been through all these hoops and hurdles, through all these people up and down the chain. Neither you, Tammy Duckworth, Senator Durbin, which you all are federal representatives, have elected to go and talk to the governor and say, you need to enforce this with that training board. Okay? I did 35 years. I have a right to enjoy that privilege. And yet no one does anything about it. So why is it that you all put a law in effect, a federal law in effect, and the governor put a state law in effect, but nobody's willing to enforce it with the training board? But the training board's chairman, who was never a law enforcement officer, he went to a small town called Leland Grove and pressured the police chief to state that he is a retired law enforcement officer, and he had that permit for 4 years until a reporter found out about it and exposed it. 13 days after they wrote that story, then he surrendered that permit. But yet the governor still has him chairman of that board. And while he's chairman of the board and he got away with that, thousands of retired officers throughout the state are being denied this privilege. And then a Democratic judge in Cook County, when we went to court on this, Eve Riley, he asked her, said, are your deputies law enforcement officers? And she looked like a deer caught in the headlights. She didn't realize that the deputies in her courtroom are law enforcement officers. Okay, so would you be willing to call up the governor and say, why don't you enforce the law that you signed into effect? Because this is the same governor when he signed into effect that law about assault weapons ban. When a couple of sheriffs downstate said they're not going to enforce it, he said they don't get to pick and choose the laws that they enforce. Why is it he letting this training board do the same thing?
Well, thank you so much. Yes, I would look forward to writing to the governor and calling him.
I would like to talk to him, right? We've gone way beyond.
Okay, I would even talk to him. Let me get his information, and understand the nature of that. Thank you.
Good evening, Congressman.
We're going to wrap up with 2 more questions, and then please feel free to come forward and we can talk some more. And again, if you have ideas, suggestions, so I know people have come and traveled from a great distance. For that, I'm grateful and appreciate you coming out. We're going to go back out into the south part of the district. Frankfurt was very kind to me. We're going out there to Mokina, to Bourbonnais, the South Loop, back over to Auburn, Gresham, back out to Forest Park. So please continue. Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, Congressman Jackson. You mentioned diversity in the military academies earlier, and as a consideration, even a request, I'm just wondering if you could share with us how you use that consideration or request as you are vetting the applications that you receive for nominations?
Sure. We take in all of the applicants. We've had 3 years now of submitting applicants for the military academies. As a matter of fact, November 15th or November 16th is the deadline. So if you've got friends and family members that are interested in going to the military academies, we write letters. We've got a program. Please go to our website. Let me get your contact information. And we have a panel of former military officials. They do the vetting. I did not serve in the military. And they create a recommendation, and I follow their recommendation. So if you've got a family member or someone that is interested, be more than happy. Thank you so much. Yes, sir. I'm sorry, there's a lady over here. There's a line, okay.
Representative Jackson.
And that's due by November 16th for the military applications. Okay.
Thank you for this town hall. My question is short, doesn't require a lot, but I want to preface it by saying someone asked about clean energy, and you support clean energy. I want you to think about nuclear energy. It is represented as being clean energy. There's no way to get rid of nuclear waste. The radioactivity that we store underground or put in the oceans are contaminating the soil and the water, the food that we eat. I would like for you to commit to voting against nuclear energy being used as clean energy, because it's not.
Thank you so much. I'm very interested, but please, I'd like to know something more about it, that I don't know all the ups and downs about nuclear energy. It's still a use that's being expanded in some place. So I will give you a commitment that I want to study it first, but it sounds right, but please, I would read it. I don't want to give you a haphazard answer. I want to be fair. Yes?
All right, thank God I'm the last question. I'm one of the youngest people in here that I see. Well, I mean, we got young people in here, but you asked the question about where you would like to do your town halls, and I think colleges. Because we are going into these fields with clean energy. We are going into these fields with new technology, sociology. We are going into all these fields. And we is the most lost. Because when I only got to know an alderman and a congressman when I got to 20 years old. That means they took all the local government information about voting for local government, learning about how we can use local government to build our communities. We never got that. We never was at school like, how would you better your community? And actively do it. You know, kids was always kicked out of the equation. And we is the most able-bodied. We could clean up the neighborhoods. We could do a lot of things. And we cannot back all of you if we don't know what's going on. And that's what is forcing us to avoid to vote at a stalemate, because us young people don't think it's important anymore, but it's very important. And so I wanted to talk to you, like, even before, this one ain't got nothing to do with the immigrants, even before this, we had Rahm Emanuel come in and shut down 50 schools on the west and south side. So we know that from the been pulled, this is about a human issue, not black and white. Because even Fred Hampton died on this, because he was uniting poor whites, he was uniting Hispanics and black people, because he was at a point where this This system is more about a class issue, and we are held back so much that we don't even have technological advancements in our transportation. Like CTA is so outdated. Like we have other countries that's far ahead of us, but we're supposed to be the most advanced in the world. So, and we didn't. And then when I got to college, I learned about international relations and what the terrorists was going to do. So when I learned about the terrorists, everybody like, this ain't gonna be nothing. Like this is another day. But I was like, oh no, this is about to hit our economy bad. But no, we have no urgency to prepare for this because people didn't realize that. And so I guess I'm asking from you is that how can we invite congressmen to dinners and talk about these issues with young people and old people and in between, black and white. So I want to have these one-time meetings at elementary schools too, at colleges too.
Well, you've got my commitment. I used to teach here. I've got a real soft spot for talking to young people, and it's a shame that they've taken the civics out of the curriculum, because I also am going to propose a bill for 18-year-olds to automatically be registered as voters, that you should not have to run around for voting. You should be automatically, as a U.S. citizen, a registered voter. That would change the landscape of the whole political process. Yes?
Hello. So,
welcome.
Thank you. So, my name is Ciara Wink. I'm 13 years old. I would first like to say, so since there was the federal government shutdown, there are federal workers that aren't getting paid. What is Congress and people in office doing to ensure that the federal workers are getting support they need? So they aren't able to pay their bills, they aren't able to put food on the table. What are people of Congress, people in office doing to ensure that the federal workers are getting support they need?
Well, there's not much that we can do. There are 800,000 federal workers, and you're going to begin to see the effects of that. That means national parks are closed. Certain people at TSA, Capitol Police aren't being paid. You're going to start feeling the government, the economy grinding towards a halt. People that are trying to make Thanksgiving travel plans are going to experience tremendous delays. Farmers that need their assistance and the programs are administered by the federal government. The federal government is kind of, you don't miss it until it's not working. But when it's working, you really don't appreciate it. And now that you see the federal government putting brakes on, farmers need to get their crops out now, and there's crop insurance that needs to be passed now. The SNAP program, for every dollar that goes in there, that's the grocer, that's the bag person, that's the trucker. All these other persons that touch that food supply chain are now without work. And so I think people didn't look at the president, and they look beyond his values and his character, saying it's the economy. What's ultimately going to make the president fail is his economic policies will fail. When you start the trade wars, that is the anticipation of physical wars. These wars start with words, and then they start with retaliation. So the economy is slowing down. This is the fourth quarter. So the fourth quarter usually is where most corporations make their profit. Now most corporations, people don't have money to spend. And this isn't like putting a key in a car and starting it. When you stop paying people, life gets in the way. People have to find other things to do. Some of these people working in government have very fine specialties that they were trained by the government to do, that they can't make a living there. They leave there and go other places. So you can't start the government back up as fast as you can shut it down. So we're going to start seeing the economy come. But I want to say, listen, congratulations at 13. Give her a round of applause. Thank you for your courage at 13. I wouldn't have stood before the crowd. And
yeah,
so
I'm in Model UN. I already know it. It's a model.
What'd she say?
Oh, okay. So I'm in the Model UN. I'm in the Model UN debate team today. That means Model United Nations, where we go around the state and stuff to debate on certain topics of real world problems. So for me to come up here and actually talk to a congressman, that's really impressive for people that are African.
That's awesome. Listen, I need you to come up here. Would you mind coming up here? I want you to size up this podium for the future. Come on up here. Thank you all so much. Thank you for coming out here. Please stop by if there are other town hall venues. Let's go from there. Okay, we're going to take a picture.
Yes.
Your whole family got
Thank
the
you so
gift.
much.
Happy Thanksgiving in
Your
advance.
entire family has
Let's
the
help a
gift.
neighbor.
You know, we like people.
So smooth.
No, mom and dad. And you want to be kind to people. Just want to be kind. But this was, well, I'm glad I got with him after I found out about it. But I sent him that, article. Okay, that's